Rise and shine, it's marketing time. Here we
Yeah.
go. It's another Wednesday morning. And
Wednesday
welcome
morning.
back, Mitch. Welcome
Hey,
back.
welcome back to me too. Thank you. Ha!
It's been a minute. Good
Oh, it
good on
has
you.
been a minute. Yes, for
So
those of you who don't know, I've been struggling with a little bit of health.
it's
I've been
been it's
struggling
been rough, dude. It has been
with a lot
rough.
of mental health issues, baldness, everything else.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been
It is
rough.
it is rough, and you know this. Being a solopreneur sometimes can be a little daunting and
Yeah.
has its ups and downs. So
Yeah,
I am.
and hopefully there's more ups than there's downs.
Yes, that's the plan. I had one member in my mastermind last week that we spent maybe an hour trying to talk out of just killing her business altogether and going back to the corporate world. Uh,
Uh-oh.
so
Uh-oh.
yes, it happens to us all.
Intervention.
Exactly, it does happen to us, and
Oh, all the time.
I say that because it's important to talk about those issues, just like it is
Yeah.
talk about mental health in the country and in the world,
Yeah, for sure.
and how we have downplayed all those issues for so long.
Yeah, for sure.
And we're not here to talk about that or politics or the
We're not?
economy or anything
Come
else.
on.
No, we're here to talk
Come
about
on.
marketing and not just Mitch's problems.
Well, hey, sometimes marketing leads into politics. I've seen that happen before.
Well, there is a hell of a lot of marketing in politics. Some
Yeah,
might say
for sure.
95%.
Yeah, or well, yeah, except for most of the time it's sort of the sleazy snake oil kind of marketing. It's not.
Ugh. Ugh. It's the
Oh,
hey, bash your competitor kind of marketing.
that's right. That's right.
Oh, man.
Yep.
So here's a topic. You got anything else you want to jump into before we get into my
No,
topic?
let's do it.
All right. So the topic of the day, and this has been bothering me for a while. And I'm not going to name names, but recently I have seen two people in the internet marketing guru world, one male, one
Yeah.
female, so it's spread evenly,
Ooh, yeah.
say that if you're not getting at least 50% conversion rate on your opt ins, you suck, in so many
Yeah.
words.
Yeah.
And so the people listening, who are, I would bet 99% of them are not getting conversion rates greater than 50%, are sitting there going, good golly, I suck. Maybe I should
Yeah.
quit.
Yeah, exactly. So
And
this it sounds like I should just punch my ticket and go back to wherever I came from and be done with it
exactly,
all.
exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
And it just drives me bonkers because we all know that you can't just throw out blanket statements like that.
Yep.
Okay, you can, obviously, because they're doing it. So, Bradley, what's a great conversion rate?
Ends.
Hey, you stole my answer. That's not fair. Dang it.
Oh, well, wait, so hold on just a second. Before we get into sort of the whole discussion about the perfect sort of idealized holy grail conversion rate that you're shooting at every single day. So the big picture here is that one, I'm glad that people are asking about conversion rates because conversion rates matter. At least
Right?
they matter as far as the data is concerned. So by asking, that means you're sort of paying attention. But even before
Yes.
that, maybe not everybody understands what a conversion rate is, and maybe how a conversion rate and maybe a viral coefficient might be different. So in your view, I mean, how would you best describe a conversion rate for anybody who's kind of watching along?
Boy, make me to be professor today.
Yes, get your chalkboard out,
It
put in a
depends.
diagram, carry the one.
It depends, but it is simply a conversion is when somebody does what you ask them to do.
Yep.
You give them a call to action and they take it. Now, you
Yep.
can record that in multiple ways. That could be simply a click on a link.
Yep.
That could be an opt-in where they give you their name and their email. It could theoretically be a purchase, although most people would call a purchase, right? Or a sale.
Yep.
But it's a conversion. It's a kind of conversion.
Yep.
Do you have anything to add to that definition? Is that
Oh,
a
you did
good
good.
one? Yay! Ring the bell for me. I did good for once. I mean, all the time.
Yeah, there you go. Just ask me, I'll tell you. You want your ego stroked?
Yeah. In this case, however, these people that I'm talking about that aggravated me are talking about the conversion of an opt-in, whether it's a lead magnet or an email list request, or I mean, they're not talking about purchases, although I think they would likely say their purchase rate's very high, but they're talking about somebody giving up their email address to opt in to get the free thing, your lead magnet.
Yeah, for sure.
We also use it in contest world, right?
Yep.
Somebody opts in to win the big prize or the little prize or whatever.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I think the only thing that I want to make sure is that because you're sort of helping differentiate things, right? As people go through a process from being sort of an unknown nobody to you and your solution and everything else, all the way through to a repeat sale. There are hoops that they sort of have to jump through, right? And in all of those, every business is slightly different in that what hoops are kind of jumping through and where they're going to land when they jump through the hoop. But
Right.
every step along there has a conversion rate, and that is sort of how many that were sitting outside the hoop make it inside the hoop. Compared to how many are just sort of looking at the hoop, like, man, I don't know,
Right.
there's 28 flames everywhere. I don't know if I want to
Right.
jump through that hoop. Yeah. Oh, Siri's calling you? What's going on over there?
I did not mute my phone. I am sorry.
I'm not talking to you anymore. Cool.
That is
So,
weird. All right. So yes.
so now, if you're watching and you have questions specific to the conversion rate sort of calculation and that stuff, pop it into the chat box. And if you feel like you have an amazing conversion rate, you want to share what it is, pop that in there too. We'd like to applaud you on the good work that you're doing. So now that we know sort of what the conversion rate is,
I'm ready. I got my button ready. Go ahead. Sorry.
Now that you know what the conversion rate is or how to calculate it and kind of what it means, what does it mean to have, I mean, what sort of frustration do you end up with, or what kind of pain in your business do you have if you have a low conversion?
Well, let's be clear. You said we know what the calculation is. We didn't actually define what the calculation was.
Oh, okay. So the calculation is the number of people who jump through the hoop divided by the total number of people staring at the hoop. So
Okay.
on a website, that would mean, for instance, an opt-in conversion rate. That would mean that whatever unique visitors are coming to the website, looking at the page itself, unique visitors, and that would be the total number that would be on the bottom. And those people who said, yeah, I want in, put their email address in, put their name in, hit the go button. That's the number of leads that you get, right? So it's the number of leads divided by the number of unique visits that you get to the website. So, so knowing those two, right? If you have a really small number on the top and a really big number on the bottom, what's the frustration there?
The frustration for you, the business owner, is you want a bigger number at the top. You want those two numbers to match if you really want to get down to it, right? You
Right,
want
right,
everybody that comes into your offer to take you up on your offer.
right. Yeah. Yeah, and the frustration could be that you're also spending time and energy to get this big number on the bottom, and
Right.
no one likes what it is you are offering. And so it tells you a lot about what it is you're trying to do, right? You're either attracting the wrong people or you've attracted the right people and your offer sucks.
Right.
I mean, it could be a couple different things going on there. But and this is one of the reasons why we were talking about in the very beginning, sort of what's a good number? I don't
Right.
know, you tell me.
Yeah.
What's a
Yeah.
good number?
And that's why people always ask that question. I know it was asked in the Up Viral group a couple of weeks ago, and you helped walk through somebody with that question. But it's even as a simple number.
Mhm.
You highlighted that there are several factors that go into that number, right?
Yep, yep,
If you're
yep.
not bringing the right traffic, so the number by itself doesn't give you that answer,
Right, it doesn't
right?
it's a yeah, right, it's a gauge of success at a moment in time, but
Right.
it doesn't give you all the answers. You have 2 variables and you have to figure out which of the 2 it is. That's the problem.
Right. Right.
Oh, so how do you improve your conversion rates?
Well, let's do this comment really quickly.
Oh,
And I'm gonna find out who this is if I
alright, you
can.
find out.
I'm not getting an answer.
Alright.
So they came from somewhere else than what I brought up on my screen here.
Oh,
Dang it.
they didn't come from Facebook?
They came from Facebook. You see the big F
Oh,
there?
alright, yeah, big F. Big F.
But that could be your group because I don't have that group pulled up here, so I don't see who that is. Anyway,
Good.
it's about figuring out what motivates or has value to your audience. It's Deborah. Hi, Deborah.
Oh, hi,
To make
Deborah.
them give up
Welcome.
their email. Yes.
Right.
So,
That's true.
well, the first thing in answering your question, and thank you, Deborah, for commenting and being here, as we love to have lots of comments. And Deborah always brings intelligent comments and questions.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about that, you say there are 2 factors. Well, you got to have data about both factors in order to evaluate whether or not you like the number that you got in the conversion rate. And I like this one too. It's not as always as obvious as we'd like to think, right?
Yeah, I would like to say most of the time it's not as obvious as you like to think.
I mean, because what you asked me before I threw up her comment was, how do you fix it? Well, the first thing
Right.
is you gotta
Yeah.
you gotta try to recognize what the problem is.
Yep.
And what you do is throw something at both sides of the issue. First of all, is it the right traffic? Do you have the right people coming in? You got to know where they're coming in from in the first place. Now, a lot of
Sure.
times that's an ad, right? You know you're paying for an ad, so you know what the audience is. Theoretically, you should know if you did good targeting if it's like a Facebook ad, but you don't even always know the kind of people that they're bringing in.
Right.
So there's a struggle there. And then the second side of the equation is, let's suppose you have your ideal audience. You got 100 people of your ideal audience and you only get 5 people to convert. What did they see on the page or not see on the page to make them not convert? And that's where one of the great ways of figuring that out is Bradley's always solution: split testing.
Yeah. Split test. A/B test. Yeah. For
Right?
sure, right? Yeah. And when because there's so many variables, the point with all of that, in my view, is only test one new change at a time. Because I mean, we already said how sensitive all of this stuff can be. So start testing, different elements of your campaign or different sources of traffic or different uh, different posts that you're boosting or you're advertising, or I mean, just figure out kind of what you're changing and then go back and look to see, well, what's making it better and maybe what's making it worse.
Right.
So, just be careful though. be re- be ready to be surprised by some stuff
Well,
for sure.
if I may, I'll give you an example. On my show yesterday, which I do every Tuesday at the same time we do this show,
Yep.
I did a review show, and
Okay.
Peter very graciously sent me his campaign that he just launched for a jewelry campaign.
Okay.
And he has a split test set up, and I applauded him like crazy for the split test.
Yeah.
Yay! And then I looked at the 2 pages. Sorry, if Peter, if you're watching, and I said this on the call, I believe. The pages were so wildly different. One was long form, had lots of images, lots of text, and the other was short and sweet.
Yep.
Now, you're going to get some data out of that, right?
Yep.
But it's not giving you the exact data that you just brought up. The idea of, I changed this grouping of words, this phrase, from this one to that one, and then you really know which one is a better thing.
Right.
So it was a very good example, I thought.
That's great. That's great. So the holy so is there a holy grail to this number?
Well, according to the people I've been talking to, it's 50% and above.
Oh, okay.
If you do a Google search, by the way, and I saw you doing some stuff over there when we first started. I don't know what you were pawing on your.
I was just announcing to other people that we're live. So don't worry about me.
If you go based on the traditional marketing stuff, and if you Google what's a great conversion rate for my lead magnet, getting very specific with your keywords.
Yep.
Which I did recently, by the way, when I got mad at these gurus. And it says, basically a really good conversion rate is somewhere between 10% and 15% for traditional lead magnet marketing.
Yep. Yeah,
so
and
you're doing better than that.
Right.
Go ahead.
Well, and I would suggest any conversion rate better than 0 is a great place to start.
Yeah.
And then in the sort of, I don't know, what do you call it? The in the spirit of making things better, the conversion rate that you start with and the conversion rate that you end with in your campaign, compare those two and the things that you changed. And if it got better along the way, pat yourself on the back because you were working your fanny off to do a better job. And these are the kinds of things that you should be paying attention to during your campaign, as well as the number of leads and how to take good care of the leads that come in and make sure that they're getting what they asked for or even more. And that way, when you're getting ready to do the next one, you can kind of have, now you have a target to shoot at, right? This campaign over here did 15%. I want to get at least 16% on the next one. And you just keep testing them against each other until you find something that just connects with people. And they just go, man, I can't believe what a great offer. And they just start coming through in droves.
Right. I agree with that 1,000%. And you mentioned a couple of things there that most people aren't doing. The big nugget for me, and I know I've preached this till I'm blue in the face, but a lot of people don't pay any attention, even the clients. And this is, I think, one of the things that I've failed with in working with clients before. And that is, most of the time, people want to do a one-off marketing campaign. And then they walk away and go, well, I didn't get this glorious 50% that all these people brag about. And so I suck, and then they walk away. What
Yep.
you said is, this is
Yeah.
a long battle. This is not a
Yeah.
short little sprint. This is a marathon that's going to go on and on and on.
Yep.
Or you just quit. You move out of the business and you go do something else.
Yeah, it's funny, when I was working, behind a counter for my parents, I think I've already explained this before, we used to have an email list that was right on the counter, and it's interesting what happens when you do this face to face with people. When you first put something out on the counter, oftentimes you just say, "Hey, you wanna sign up to our email list?" And then people are like, "Yeah, no, I don't know."
Yeah.
And then you start to change it and you say, "Hey, look, if you give us your contact information, we'll give you coupons to come back." And then they go, "Oh, that's interesting." And so they
Yeah.
start writing that down. Or, "Hey, look, here's what we're gonna do. If you give us your contact information, we'll give you a coupon for the next time you come in, and we're doing a monthly drawing on all the new names that came in this month." And now all of a sudden you're starting to realize you're talking to people in a way that they are most interested in communicating and giving up what it is you want from them. That sort of real live example of what happens in our own heads doesn't normally translate to the digital world for some reason. It's like someone just simply says, "Hey, look, here's my clipboard, put your name on it." And then they leave it up like that and never talk to the audience again. And at the end they go, "Man, I got 2 or 3 names. That kind of sucked. I don't know if I want to ever do that again."
Right.
So so that sort of mentality of, well, what would I say to a human being that came to me and I had a tablet and all I had to do is take down their information? What conversation am I supposed to be having with them so that they're more apt to give me their information? That's sort of a very simple drill that anybody could do, and you end up boosting your conversion rate.
Yeah.
So what would you do? So because we're talking about conversion rates, there's another conversion rate here. Or there's sort of another rate that we're talking about, and that is this word of mouth bit,
Right.
right? On the campaigns that you and I do, we're not done when we get somebody's email address. We're trying to do something else. We're trying to get them to share it with someone else. And then those shares, we want those shares to come in and jump in. So um how do we measure that? How do you measure that? And how do you make that better?
Well, that's the entire game, isn't it? When I'm using UpViral, which of course is, as I've stated a million times, my favorite current tool,
Yep.
started looking at another one the other day, which is rather interesting. But that's another topic.
Shiny
UpViral,
objects for Mitch.
well, yeah, it's. I mean, as a tangent
It's
here,
okay.
a lot of people
Yeah.
ask the question, well, why is UpViral the best tool? And my answer is, of course, varied. It's
Yeah.
not the perfect tool. It's
No.
not got all the features that I want, and it has some features that other tools or doesn't have. But the thing that UpViral does have that nobody else that I've seen yet has is the best, even though they're frickin' broken, the best stats on the planet from what I've seen. And so if I can find another tool that has the ability to give me all the data, because that's what
Yeah.
you and I live on, right? Is the data.
Right, right. Yep, yep, yep.
So going to that, the reporting feature in UpViral, it has the conversion rate of people coming in on the front end, the people that
Yep.
you share your link with. It has a conversion rate of the people who are coming in via word of mouth.
Right.
They call it the referred rate. What do they call it? I've forgotten.
Yeah.
What I call the number is I then take not the percentages, but I take the number of referred leads on the top and I divide it by
Mhm.
the number of people that came in directly to get a ratio.
Okay.
And that number, what we really want to have, and
Mhm.
it's been said in the past that if you get that number over 1, then
Yeah.
you have a magic campaign.
Right.
And I can tell you that's a pile of hooey too.
Yeah.
These campaigns just don't suddenly go viral and then they're shared everywhere. At some point there's a peak and they start
Yeah.
going down, right? You got to
Yep.
keep feeding the beast. So don't let anybody try to tell you that if you get this referral ratio that I've been calling it, because it's not on the screen anywhere, you got to calculate it yourself.
Yeah.
But if that magic number is over 1, then theoretically your campaign's just going to go ballistic and viral, and you're going to be happy-go-lucky, and it's just not true. I mean, I have. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that watching the data is very interesting because you can sort of get this acceleration and you see, man, this is great. The campaign is really functioning well. And then somehow or another, everyone on your list either gets worn out, they get tired, there's another news cycle, or something else happens in their lives. And it starts to come down, and you're like, oh no, man, pull up, pull up. And I think there's just a realization that you should just simply say, hey, look, we've probably outlived the effectiveness of this particular campaign, and it's okay to taper it off, shut it down, go back and learn some lessons and redo it again with a fresh new set of eyes and the information that you learned from the first round, or I mean the previous round. It could be the 10th round that you're doing this, but yeah, it's real interesting to watch the data, and it just does feel like your heart kind of goes down, like, oh man, it was doing so great. Well, yeah,
You
of course it was
still
doing
have
great. That's awesome.
to feed the beast.
That's right.
I do want to be clear for anybody that's watching. If you're running a contest, sweepstakes, whichever word you want to use on the world,
Yep.
and you're in the United States, although Bradley said wind it down if the stats aren't looking good, legally in the United States, you cannot shut a contest down before your announced close date.
For sure.
I'm just trying, because I've heard people go, oh, well, this campaign sucks and I'm just going to shut it down. I'm like, no, you want to go to jail? Right. Go ahead.
Right. Yeah.
Now, I just have to throw in that legal disclaimer to cover our fannies.
Good idea.
You're absolutely right. The other thing is that if it's dwindling down, you could obviously go try to find another traffic source. You could, and I'd be willing to bet that a lot of people in that scenario aren't emailing their list like you and I want to say.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. Yeah, there's all kinds of ways to pour fuel back on the fire, right? And it's not to repeat the previous messages that you already sent out. It's to reach back in and get them excited about what this campaign is all about and do it in a different way. Try something new. Send them a video. Send them an article of why it's so cool. Send them a real clear understanding of how their life gets better if they win the particular item. I mean, there's all kinds of crazy stuff to do. And if you've been tracking the data and you know where the good traffic is coming from, lean into that. Go find either keep doing that and keep putting fuel on that fire, or find a traffic source that's very similar to that. And then go engage that so that you can finish strong.
Yeah. And there is, by the way, a trick that you can do, because we figured that out in my mastermind. And yes, I keep talking about my mastermind, but I love my mastermind in that people ask me questions and they're like, well, could we do a weekend campaign inside of UpViral, for example, where we say, look, if you whoever brings in the most leads this weekend gets a prize. And I instantly say, no, the tool doesn't have that functionality. And then they push back on me and they go, come on, Mitch. Come on. I know how you do this. You think about it for a few minutes. And they go about talking about some stuff. And then I go, God dang it, the data's there. All you got to do is go into the data and do this and blah blah.
Figure out who referred them, and then and do a little math. The challenge with this though is that if you're an entrepreneur, you're busy doing other stuff. And I think
Exactly.
that that's the biggest one of the biggest reasons that people hire you and me is that they have a whole business they're trying to run. They have this really great idea, but they don't want to babysit this crazy thing.
Exactly.
They just wanna push a button, imagine it happens, and then at the end of the day, collect the benefits, and they're okay to pay for it.
Right.
Um, if you're a solopreneur or you're a small shop and you're trying to do this on your own, this is a really great idea for you to be able to do, but the reality is, will you spend the time over the weekend to do it?
Right.
There's no automated way right now. I'm trying to create a tool that gives us some of that, some of that capability. And as I continue to hear some of these sort of suggestions, I'm going to continue to try to figure out how to add those capabilities into the tool. So, hopefully by the end of this weekend, I will actually have a working version
What?
of a tool that does some cool stuff. Some of the cool stuff that I'm working on is a sort of offer wizard, right? If you know who it is that you're trying to serve, how do you create the offer? And then have it sped out a lot of the copy that you would just sort of copy and paste onto the
Nice.
page. Yeah, and then to be able to take the data that you're talking about and manipulate it in a way that gives you some answers like you guys are talking about, right? Are there some special one-off contests that you could do? Are there ways to, quickly like your spreadsheet does, right? Quickly go back and figure out the family generations of who brought in what leads and
Right.
who's most valuable in your campaign.
Right.
That kind of stuff is really powerful, and it should be available at the push of a button rather than, having to do what you and I do and sit in a spreadsheet and try to figure it all out. And I don't care about spreadsheets. I use them every day and they're fine for me, but they're not for everyone.
Yeah. Well, that's true, and especially trying to figure out some of the internal stuff of all these calculations that
Right.
because what I did was, like, for example, in that spreadsheet, I have this thing that I call the People Master that Bradley's talking about. It's an Excel spreadsheet, and you do simply have to put the data in. You have to copy and paste some data and push the
Right.
button and say go analyze it. Um, it doesn't have the magic bullet yet that says this person's cheating. It gives you a lot of
Yeah.
flags that say whether or not they might
Right.
be
Yeah.
cheating. Uh,
Yeah.
but the automation side of it's what's key, which is what I spent a lot
Right.
of time doing macros and stuff because I had a programming background.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I do absolutely love those kind of things, and that's the kind of stuff that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and
so
I think for those people who kinda hear you and I chatting about this kinda stuff, they're like, "Oh my gosh, this gives me a headache.
yeah.
Why would I ever have to do all this by myself?" And I don't know what an equal symbol looks like in a spreadsheet. I use them to create a calendar or a to-do list or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And then you and I have this sort of background that allows us to automate a bunch of stuff. And I personally am a one lazy son of a gun. I don't want to do it over and over and over and over again. So I would love to automate this kind of thing so that I don't have to. And if that benefits somebody else at the same time, that's awesome. And that's the way I'm developing the software is that my hope is that anybody that was interested could log in, create their own profile,
Right.
update or create their own set of avatars. From those avatars, create offers and essentially have the lead capture page just, boom, plugged in with some really cool headlines, some really big promises and some bullet points and some calls to action. Now you're just copying and pasting, trying it out. You've got a campaign that works. Now, what do I do with the data, and how do I know what to change? And those are the kinds of things that I'm trying to build in. It's certainly going to take some time, but
Yeah.
man,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm anxious to get it done because I know how much it will help me. So if it helps me,
Yeah.
I'm hoping that it helps other people.
Yeah. And we've gone a long way from just conversion rate starting this
For
conversation, right?
sure, we always
Um,
do. This show
but
this show is funny. We start out with one big title, and then we go through all kinds of rabbit holes and everything else.
um the other thing that I did, by the way, and I don't think I've ever mentioned this to you, is that I have a second spreadsheet. And the thing that I've preached, I have lots of spreadsheets, but all right, that preached about this long term. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Mhm.
Most of us treat a single campaign as a single campaign, and you've preached about taking that and doing something different.
Yeah.
So the second spreadsheet that I have says, all right, campaign A, campaign B,
Yep.
how are they better or different or worse? And compare the stats. Like in a spreadsheet, you can see different columns of stats.
Yeah.
And that way you can start visually seeing, especially if you have the graphs at the bottom or whatever, that show
Yeah.
you, oh, this worked, this didn't work, and that kind of stuff. That's where the gold lies, is in the longer term,
Yeah.
evaluating how well you're doing over time.
Yeah, the tool that I'm working on is gonna be avatar based,
Is
right?
it?
So, yeah, my whole idea, kinda like what you're talking about, is if I am running a campaign or a series of campaigns for an avatar, like a person or the type of audience that I'm expecting to attract, I'm gonna be changing the offer, I'm gonna be changing the headlines, I'm gonna be changing the copy, I'm gonna be changing images and all this other stuff, right, in different campaigns, but I want that avatar to be able to track all of those campaigns to know, well, which one over time has been working best and how has the growth for that avatar occurred over time no matter the campaign. So
Nice.
it makes it easier for me to provide a service to someone else or to run my own campaigns and be able to go back and look and say, "Hey, look, for this kind of avatar, here is an amazing campaign." And I don't wanna reinvent the wheel. So I wanna duplicate it, or I want to, copy it from one, kinda client to the next kinda client and say, "Hey, look, your offer may not be identical, but man, let's make it as parallel as possible. Let's make it as similar as possible, at
Right.
least to start, because we know it works."
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds awesome. I can't wait to dive
Yeah.
in. And of
Yeah.
course I get it for free, right? Um it's you're just highlighting the issues that we're struggling with, all of us struggle with.
Yeah.
And it depends upon the kind of business you're doing. I think
Yeah.
what I'm really sort of hearing is something that potentially is a fabulous offer in itself.
Sure.
And that is, you have experience as an agency. I have experience working with a ton of different clients theoretically as an agency. And we've learned all these things over time. And
Yeah.
then there's Deborah over here, who's a solopreneur.
Right.
And Deborah's still trying to figure out how to run a small campaign.
Right.
And where do you go after you do your first one? And how do you learn from that? The
Yeah.
struggle always is you got to learn, and they learn slowly. Whereas
Yeah.
if there's this masterful tool that helps
Right.
you recognize these patterns,
Right.
then what we're doing is we're shortcutting the entire learning process by going, here's the tool you need to help you figure out what's
Right.
working, what's not working. And that's so
Yeah.
beneficial. Yeah, it helps out an agency, right? An agency would love to have something like that. But if you got it over here to help the little
Right.
people,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
amazing.
who knows? I mean, it may end up being sort of priced that way, right? You get like 3 avatars or 5 avatars as a solopreneur, and then as an agency, maybe you get 100 avatars or you
Yeah,
get, 30 avatars or whatever, and that's the way it works. I don't know yet. We'll figure it out, but, we're
that's a
gonna beat the
very
crap out
interesting
of it.
approach.
We're gonna beat the
I mean,
crap out of it and try to figure it out.
because most you're highlighting a different way of thinking than my brain,
Yeah.
because typically what I'm thinking is this individual campaign,
Right.
or
Yep.
maybe even as a business, but you're turning it into the Avatar conversation. The big blue
Yeah.
alien that's in a movie somewhere.
That's right.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, flying around or swimming, apparently, that's the next one, right? They're all
is
gonna
it?
be underwater. Yep, I think so.
So And that's the struggle, right? And I've talked about that before. I keep saying that I talk about things before because it's repetition that people eventually will sink in, hopefully. I hated the conversation about the avatar when I first started my business.
Yeah.
I know who my people are. I know
Uh-huh.
what they want. I get this brilliant idea. I'm going to be Steve Jobs and just shove it down their throats because I know what they want, right?
Yeah.
Steve's
Yep.
famous for that conversation. And we end up as solopreneurs entirely skipping that conversation because
Right.
we think we know.
Yeah.
And here you
Yep.
are going, this
Yeah.
is where you start.
Right.
I mean, for those of you who don't know, when Bradley and I talked about doing this podcast, Bradley said, "All right, who's your avatar?" And I went, and he's like, "Okay, let me give you this worksheet, and you know." So I mean, this is how ingrained Avatar is to Bradley.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because, for instance, this is total rabbit trail, but I'm doing an interview on Friday for a $500,000 assignment, and it starts with the avatar. We actually, as a team, wrote a book proposal to actually be able to sit for this interview, and I sat down with the person who I know is making the decision, and I created an entire avatar for this person. And when I was doing the majority of the writing or the editing on this book, uh, the avatar was front and center. And what happens is you start to talk to the entire team that's working on this and say, "Hey, look, here's the person we're doing this for. Here are the challenges that they have. Here's what they want out of life. Here is where they see their challenges." And all of a sudden, everyone gets super focused, and all of the other just nonsense doesn't mean anything. Well, why put it in the book if it doesn't matter? Great, let's not put it in the book. Let's put more things that matter, and it leads to, for me, leads to millions of dollars worth of sales. So
Nice.
far this year, I'm at almost 2 million, and at the end of this week, I could be close to 2.5 million. And it's just it's phenomenal to watch this process. And if you don't know who you're talking with and you don't know what their issues are, it doesn't even matter. None of it matters. So that's why I crafted it the way I did. Anyway,
Deborah said
who's
this.
more
I
Deborah?
assume it's
Way to go, Deborah.
I assume it's Deborah
Okay.
because nobody else has commented.
The next comment will be, yeah, it's Deborah.
Uh, But this is, I mean, you just said all that stuff. Deborah posted this probably 10, 15 minutes ago. You have
Okay.
to approach the campaign and the offer from their perspective first.
Yep,
Then figure out how you can serve them. You just said that.
that's right. Yeah, and the super simple terms, right? We Customer service is a big deal for all of us, whether we sell widgets or we provide service or, information.
Right.
C'est moi. Um, anyway, that service component of it is super important, and if we don't know who we're serving and what's in it for them, we're in trouble. We're really in trouble. And I think that's the downfall of probably more than half of the entrepreneurs. They have this really amazing idea in their own head about what they want to sell and who's gonna buy it, and they go all in, right? They go all in, and then they find out that the people who they were talking to don't like what they have to offer,
Right.
and they end up giving up rather than, "Okay, who do I wanna help? Can I just sit down with them and figure out what they're struggling with and then solve the biggest problem they've got?" Okay, great. Now you've got a business. Before, you didn't have a business.
And it's fascinating to me because every course, every offer that's in the at least information man what I am world, my brain isn't working. You know, they all start with know your avatar, and they have
Right.
one little module, and
Mhm.
there's a little tiny bit of focus that you got to go do that, and everybody goes, yeah, I've heard that before. Yeah, I spent 5 minutes on it, and off they go. And again, I'm raising my hand because I've been there, done that.
Sure.
And yet, as you learn, as you go through this process, you've just hit the nail on the head. Most of us, most of the entrepreneurs I've run into, don't know that. They
Yeah.
really don't know that.
Yep. Yep. Yeah,
So,
I think I've shared with this group before that I created a what they call lean startup circle in North Carolina when I was there, and having entrepreneurs come in every month and talk about their idea, and then pushing them back out and saying, "Go test this and that." Was fascinating for me because I saw it over and over and over again. Every month, someone would come in, "Hey, I have this really great idea," and then you hear the great idea, and you're like, "Okay, well, that's fantastic. If you think that's a really good idea, then go test it." How am I gonna go test it? Well, you're gonna go talk to some people. You're gonna go ask them what they'd be willing to pay for it, when they'd be willing to, give you money. And in fact, if they're willing to give you money now in a pre-sale, even this little bit, all of a sudden their opinion really matters, and that's awesome. You're pre-funding your work, and, you have an audience who's willing to pay for it. That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
But if you can't get anybody to give you any time or attention and everyone's opinions all over the place, they don't really care. It's not worth it. Go find something else. Um,
very true. And Deborah threw this in. Zig Ziglar says you get more of what you want by helping others get what they want.
Oh,
Goes
Zig.
goes right back to the original question: what's a good conversion rate?
Yeah, and it all depends, right? So the holy grail to conversion rates, it all depends. It all depends on you and the previous campaign or where you started your campaign. If your conversion rate is better than 0 and it gets better and better over time, that's the best conversion rate for you and
Right.
your campaigns. And it does not do you any good to ask anybody else what their conversion rate is unless you're serving the same avatar, getting the same traffic, providing the same offer, and using the same words that they're using. It does not matter at all. And if you're doing exactly what somebody else is doing, you're gonna lose your shorts.
Yep.
Not
So
good.
so if any of the people that I've talked, I don't know how to say this. I'm going back to what started this conversation, and that was my frustration with these gurus that just give this blanket statement
Yeah.
that say if you're not getting a 50% conversion rate, you suck. And
Yeah.
again, they're not using those words. They're using it as a form of encouragement, right? To try
Yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
you need to focus on this and you need to get better, and I agree with all of that kind of stuff.
Right.
But just between you and me, it just irritates the kajibers out of me that they essentially, if you read it the other way, they're demeaning those people
Right.
and potentially killing their business. And I can hear the Shark Tank people going, "Well, yeah, if they're not getting 50%, screw them. They shouldn't be in business." What's the bald guy that
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Mr. Wonderful? Oh,
Yeah,
well, you shouldn't be in business if you can't get this kind of conversion rate. Well, that's the law of supply and demand, and off you go.
Right.
So there is that side of it, but it just frustrates me when people set expectations for other people without giving them the tools to fix it.
Yeah, and I maybe I should go back and restate what I'd said or clarify one of the things I was saying. Even if you're getting if you're using the same campaign as somebody else and all of this other stuff, then you lose your shorts. Unless you've purchased into a franchise. If you've purchased into a franchise, that's the idea, right? Is that every franchise should have predictable results.
Right.
And the thing that matters or varies between them is the specific market that they're in or the geographic reach that they're in. But the marketing materials are the same. The offer is the same. The way the campaigns are run is exactly the same, and it's generally run or supplemented by the mothership. So they should all be performing similarly.
Right.
But that's in my view, that's probably the
Very
only way that you you could be justified
very
to
good
do that.
point. Very good
Yeah.
point.
Yep.
That's the nugget right there, Deborah says. Compare your own results and look for improvement.
Yeah.
Other people's conversion rates are not relevant. Thank you, Deborah.
Yep, for sure.
And-
Yep, thank you very much.
And I think that lands the plane, doesn't it?
It does. Then I dig this topic, and as we're landing here, I dig this topic. It comes up over and over again, and it was actually I featured it in the Q&A that I have for my word of mouth marketing secrets program for getting white hot leads without having to pay for every click. It's still free. I haven't had a chance to do the sales page for it yet. So until I do a sales page for it, wordofmouthmarketingsecrets.com, go and grab it. If you don't have it, you're going to lose out, and I'm going to close the gate, and you're going to all have to pay for it. So some amazing, really cool stuff in there that kind of walks you through this entire process.
Nice. Well done.
Thanks. How about you? How do people get a hold of you? What are you offering right now? What's the coolest thing since sliced bread for Mitch's world?
I am in the process of simplifying, which I think is always very appropriate for whatever it is that you're doing or trying to sell. If you can, if you're not selling a franchise or a physical thing or whatever, but and that, it's evolution of products and everything else. But I am realizing that even though I have nailed it down, I think Thank You Page Magic, a 2-page funnel, is very simple. I think there's still a few things that I can squeeze down. I actually do have Tim Berger and I are going to do a course next week, which is going to be our very first cut at it. He's sell to the list kind of guy, to help people sell to the list. So the first question always is, how do I get people on my list? Second question is, how do I get them to buy stuff from me? So we thought it was an appropriate idea to try to put a course together, 3-day hands-on kind of thing. So that's coming up next week. If anybody's interested, if you've seen this afterwards, it'll probably be evergreen and you can come grab it.
That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
Where's it going to be posted? How do the people get it?
If you go to thankyoupagelmagic.com/magiclist, that's the link that I have set up. There is no sales page. Right now it's just the cart page. And it's kind of fly by the seat of the pants, which is one of the things we've talked about, right? Going to put the offer out there. We're going to tweak it a little bit, see if it does some good stuff for us, modify it as we go. But that's going to be my link. Tim will probably have his own freaking link. You know how that goes. But Magic List is the offer. thankyoupagelmagic.com/magiclist.
Cool. And then next week we're going to do this all over again.
Yeah. Awesome. Always.
Well, I learned a lot from you today, Mitch. Thank you very much.
I always learn a lot from you, Bradley. Deborah says, great stuff.
Yeah,
you're
thanks,
welcome.
Deborah. Yeah,
thanks for commenting
and asking questions and commenting and stuff like that. That's awesome.
Yep. All right, we will catch you all next week. Same bat time, same bat channel.
All right, take care.